The harvest is rich, but the labourers are few. So ask the Lord of the harvest to send labourers to his harvest. The challenge of people being willing to serve in the work of Christ, to give their life in service, is not just something that's a contemporary concern. It was a concern for the early church. How was the Christian community going to have people who were going to commit their life to the life of service? And sometimes I've experienced in my life different communities saying, what's God doing? Why don't we have more people, men who are putting their hands up to be priests? Why don't we have more women who are putting their hands up to be sisters? Is God just not blessing us? And this can be a concern sometimes. Yes, absolutely, we should be praying for vocations. If you haven't prayed for someone or prayed for vocations to the priesthood and religious life for a while, please do so. As a community, we should be asking, as this gospel says, ask the Lord of the harvest to send labourers to his harvest. This week we had 2 ordinations to the diaconate, a real blessing for our community. Deacon Michael, who has been here just since July, and then Mark Anderson, who was with us last year. Mark grew up in the Shire. Michael grew up in Uganda. But it's been decades since we've had a vocation that's come from within the Cronulla community. And so we're called to pray. The responsorial psalm said, "Happy are all who long for the coming of the Lord." And the way we will get vocations is not just by fancy vocations promotions posters that you might see in the foyer. We're not really going to get vocations that way. It's creating an openness for the coming of Christ. Happy are all who long for the coming of the Lord. If we create a culture that we are expectant, we're looking forward for the coming of the Lord, then there is a desire for service. And it's into this context where a desire for the coming of the Messiah, where Mary was prepared. Mary was able to say yes to God, yes to the Archangel Gabriel, because she was within a culture already that was looking forward to salvation, that was looking forward to the coming of our Saviour. She'd been prepared by her parents, St. Joachim, St. Anne. She'd been prepared by a culture of reading the Old Testament, as we heard here in the prophet Isaiah, where we look with a longing for this kingdom. And that's what we're called to prepare. How can we create a culture? And that's what we're called to do during Advent. Prepare a community for the service and the coming of Christ amongst us. Happy are all who long for the coming of the Lord. How can we promote this? Maybe this is our prayer for today. How can we promote this to our children, to our grandchildren, maybe even to our great-grandchildren? Not just a job where we're called to have labourers out in the harvest. It's not about a job. It's about a longing for God's kingdom. And when we have a longing and a real longing, it's really deep in who we are, and then all these other things fall into place as well. Happy are all who long for the coming of the Lord. Let's promote that in our works this week.